Today's guest is Vincent Tolman, who is a spiritual teacher and guide whose life changed dramatically after a near death experience at the age of 25. After being found clinically dead in a restaurant bathroom and placed in a body bag, a rookie paramedic broke protocol and miraculously restarted his heart. During the time he was gone, Vinny says he experienced the other side, an event that profoundly transformed his life and spiritual awareness. Today, he shares those insights to help others heal, grow, and discover a deeper spiritual perspective on life. Welcome, Vincent.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I interview people who've had near-death experiences, and there's one other person who I've spoken to had something similar to your near-death experience in terms of not the after effects or the spiritual connection, perhaps, but incidentally going into a morgue and being placed in the freezer, taken out of the freezer, and his parents went to recognize him, and he came out of the freezer awake.
Wow.
Uh, Very interesting. So when I heard your story or what you spoke about in terms of not only that the earthly experience, but whatever took place thereafter,
hmm
um, maybe you can get into your story a little bit of what happened, of how this took place, and maybe a little bit of your background before actually that happened.
Yeah, kind of the background was I was a home builder. This was back in 2003. I'd been building homes since the mid 90s, so I had been building homes for quite a while, and uh, I loved building, and I would occasionally moonlight or work in TV and film as a producer or as a production assistant. And I just wrapped a show where I'd worked for 3 years, and I was trying to put meaning in my own life, and I discovered bodybuilding as an amateur, not a professional, because they're two completely different worlds. So I started getting into working out, hitting the gym a lot, and in doing so, there was a product back then in 2003. It was called furanone dihydro, and what it would do is it would let your muscles recover every 24 hours.
Right.
But traditional muscle recovery is about 72 hours. So it would accelerate the process of recovery so you could work out your arms every day. You work out your legs every day. And back then it was a big deal if you had to alternate days, you weren't getting the gains
Right.
that you wanted.
Right. Right.
Um, so me and my buddy, we ordered some of this stuff. We ordered it from like 5 different places. Every place we ordered from was on back order. So we went online and we found a place in Thailand that was selling it. So we ordered a bottle. It's a liquid supplement. And when it came, we were both excited. It came like on a Thursday. And, we both looked at each other and said, great, this Saturday, we're going to go do our workouts. We're going to start back on the rotation of having this product. So Saturday came around. I went over to my buddy's house where he had the bottle. We each took a liquid bottle cap. So it was a liquid supplement, came in a bottle. We each took our little bottle cap, kind of like a water bottle cap. It's just the same size. We each took that, downed it, and within seconds, we both were like, "Whoa, this stuff's strong. This stuff's stronger than anything we've tried before." And looking at each other, we thought, well, you know what? If we get some strong stuff in the past, we would just go eat and we would feel better. So we went down to a restaurant down the street. There happened to be a Dairy Queen a few blocks away from his house. We made it to the Dairy Queen just barely because we were both starting to lose consciousness by the time we even got there. Um, we had both started to feel like this cold chill run over our chest and then down into our legs. And it's very much the sensation that people feel when they have anesthesiology or anesthesia. I could feel almost an anesthesia symptom happening to my body. I went directly into the Dairy Queen as soon as we got there. I went to the restroom and I locked the door. It was a single use bathroom. So I went in there, locked that door, and before I knew it, the whole world felt like it was spinning on me. And then I remember hearing this loud crack. And what I didn't know is that crack was my head hitting the ground. And the very next thing I know, I'm sitting, it feels like I'm sitting up in the air. It almost feels like I'm sitting in a comfortable theater, but all the lights are out. So I can tell that it's dark everywhere and I'm in a comfortable space. I'm not worried, I'm not freaked out, but at the same point, I don't know where I am. And I see this light like far off in the distance. And as I focused on that light, it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it got clearer and clearer and clearer. And that light turned out to be a view of this scene where there was a dead body. And I didn't know it was me. I didn't know that this dead body I was looking at was me because me was up here, not down there. So I just thought, wow, this is a dead guy. Poor guy. Wonder
Wow.
who's going to help him. I remember thinking that. Like, I hope someone helps him. And then the next thing I know, I'm looking down at my buddy who had come in the restaurant. He had collapsed on a dining booth and started to vomit over the table. And then the manager of the restaurant came out and saw what was happening. He called 911. They got an ambulance there and they took him away. He ended up being fine. They pumped his stomach and kept him overnight, but he ended up being just fine. But no one knew that there was two of us. They only saw him.
Wow.
And it wasn't for an hour later that the manager opened that locked bathroom that had been locked for a long time and saw a dead body on the ground. And they did call 911 a second time that day. And when the medics came, when the emergency services came, they pronounced the body dead. They tried to resuscitate it. They tried chest compressions. They tried all their traditional procedures, and there was no sign of life. The body was cold to the touch at that point. They felt like there was no sign of life at all. So they went ahead and pronounced death. They gave a time of death. They filled out the paperwork, and this medic team. It was a three-man team. There was two two veterans and one rookie. And this rookie, it was his job to sit in the back of the ambulance and babysit the dead body. And while he was doing that, he could feel a tremendous amount of sorrow that he hadn't been able to do what he wanted to do. He wanted to work harder on the body. He wanted to do more things. He wanted to hook up a defib machine to try to bring the heart to come back. And he had all these desires to do more, but he was also the rookie. He didn't want to, you know, hurt any feelings or break any protocols. And he did keep trying to talk to the two veterans, like, can we do more? Can we do more? And they were both saying, no, this guy's gone. You got to know when to give up. So he's sitting there watching this body. Well, the two veteran medics, they get done doing paperwork and they come back into the ambulance and they starting to drive away. Meanwhile, a police officer did show up and they had to trade paperwork with the police officer. And as soon as that paperwork traded, they started to leave the scene, and this medic, he started to have this rookie, he had light start to form around his heart. And I heard very, very loudly the sentence, "This one's not dead." And I have a strong sense that he felt it too. He heard it too. He didn't do anything about it, but I could hear him say in his own mind, "That's just your imagination." So then about another half block down the road, this light that was glowing inside of him, it grew and it was bigger. And I heard it a second time. This time was very forcibly loud. And it said, "This one's not dead." And from that moment forward, that rookie, he sprung into action. He,
I just want to stop you for
yeah,
a second here. So, in most cases, if people are familiar with near-death experiences, the soul or consciousness leaves the physical body and
yeah.
is either floating above the area, watching the scene from above. Is that what happened with you?
I was still watching from above, but I couldn't leave it. Like I tried to follow the ambulance when my buddy was taken away in his ambulance. I tried to follow it, and I could get about maybe 100 feet away from the restaurant, and then I was like pulled back. It's as if I had some kind of energetic leash or chain on me. It wouldn't let me leave the body, even though I didn't know it was my body. I I thought for sure it was somebody else. I thought, no way is that me. That's not possible because me was up here, you
Right.
know?
But in terms of, okay, so that's where the body is. Then when the body is picked up, your physical body is picked up. Are you traveling with it? In the,
Yes.
okay.
Yep. I've I had no choice. It was not even a choice to decide to go with it or not. I just was going with it. Yeah.
Okay. So you're floating above the ambulance or within the ambulance, floating above
It
the,
felt like I was on the ceiling of the ambulance.
oh,
It's
okay.
as if I was standing on top of the ambulance, but there was no ceiling on it. Like I could see right through it. Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So this is, so we'll pick up from where this takes place. I just wanted to go back a little bit in terms of your concept of death prior to this and your affiliation towards the reincarnation or the your whole spiritual understanding of what happens or what's
Well,
happening.
before this happened, I was raised Christian. I was raised in a very strong Christian home, but also an abusive Christian home. So I did have like a love-hate relationship with Christianity. I I was thinking that God's love for us was something you earned, that you didn't just get it, you had to earn it with righteousness and with action. And I had I would say almost a perverted perception of Christianity, but not a truth perception of Christianity. And I had gone to church my whole life as a child. I had no choice. It's what we are forced to do, whether we wanted to go or not. And and oddly, I had left church for about 4 years and had just started coming back. So I just started coming back about 6 months before all this happened. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, from many of the interviews that I do, and I'm sure you've heard of it as well, or you may have this understanding. It's usually people are on a certain course in their lives. They're either following their soul's mission, their soul's journey, uh, or they're shaken back into a situation where they're called to pay attention to something, I guess, in their life or to
Yes.
reroute. Um, I guess we can get into your rerouting if there was a reroute in this particular situation of bringing you back, maybe in a different light as opposed to the religion's aspect of where you were placed or forced into being. And this situation perhaps was taking you now to a real spiritual connection.
Yes. I was not the most spiritual person for sure, even though I did have a personal relationship with God. I always had that.
Right.
Since I was a very young child, I somehow knew, not because of teaching, I just knew that I had a personal relationship with God.
Okay. So
And
what
and
was
it
the
served
diff
me outside religion. Yeah.
yeah, so what was the difference between, let's say, a person who hears it's a religious connection as opposed to it being a spiritual connection? What was the difference for you?
So religious is more of a belief paradigm, whereas a spiritual connection is more of a physical and belief paradigm. So it's much more of a physical connection of being directly plugged into creation,
Yeah.
uh, in comparison to hypothetically being plugged into creation. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's take us back now to what takes place when you're in the ambulance and you have the rookie
Well, the
paramedic.
rookie, he doesn't listen to that voice the first time. The second time he heard it, he did listen to the voice. He went ahead and broke protocols. He unzipped the body bag, started feeling around for a pulse. He felt something on the inner thigh. He felt some type of twinge. He didn't think it was a pulse, but he felt something there.
Wow.
And for him, it was enough to take action. Actionable steps is what he called it. So he began his actionable steps. He ended up hooking up a defib on the body. He ended up feeding oxygen into the lungs. And between the two of those, on the third round of shocks, a heartbeat started. And, at that moment, from the time that the heart started, it was 47 minutes after the DOA declaration. So pronounced dead and heart starting 47 minutes exactly. So that, documented it's 47 minutes, but likely I was dead for about an hour beforehand. So possibly an hour 47, maybe 2 hours. Yeah.
Wow. So gathering this, you're actually hearing, you're able to pick up on his, I guess his not thought pattern, but what he's feeling, perhaps
Yes.
in this situation, as well as
Yeah.
the conversation between him and the other paramedics that you're.
100%. Yeah, I'm picking up on all of that with them. And as I'm watching all this go on, as soon as the heart starts, everything changed in the ambulance. Everything. And instead of taking the body to the medical examiner, they turned, and one of the miracles is when the heart started, they were a few hundred feet from a trauma center. They weren't going to that trauma center. They were going to be driving past it to turn the body in somewhere else. But it just so happened that the route they took that day was right in front of that trauma center. So they were able to beeline directly into that hospital. And that happened to be the same hospital my buddy had been brought to as well. So we were both in that same hospital that night. My problem is, as they were transferring the body over, I did finally realize that what I'd been watching was me.
Wow.
It was the most surreal thing to sit there and be witnessing this, feeling like it's almost interactive entertainment, only to find out that it's reality and that's you.
Wow.
And that was such a heavy, heavy feeling on me. I started to see anything bad that I ever did in my life. And I saw it from my eyes and I saw it from the eyes of those who I did it to. Even when I didn't know I was doing bad or hurting others, I saw it all. When I got through all of that, I had this voice inside me saying, if this is all that I am, why do I even exist? And as soon as I had that thought, there was this overwhelming wave of love that came over me. Just overwhelming. It just poured down on me. And I could feel so much love from every different direction. And I started to see all the good things that I ever did in my life. Every big thing, little thing, even the menial things that you don't think matter. I saw all of it, any good that I ever did. And as soon as I started to see that, that warmth, that love started to permeate who I was. It started to get in and start doing some healing that my soul needed.
Yeah.
And as all that was happening, I did realize that this love was coming directionally from behind me. So I turned around and and I see this man just standing there. He's all dressed in white. He's got a long white beard. He's got like a white suit with this like ascot or this robe type thing over his shoulders. And he's just standing there staring at me. And he has this smile on his face that he's grateful to see me, grateful to behold me. And my first thought was, this is God. This has to be God. And as soon as I had that thought, he's in his thoughts, he answered me. He didn't move his mouth. He just used his thoughts. He said, "No, son, I'm not God." And I didn't know what else to ask. I just thought, well, then are you Jesus? Somehow are you Jesus, not God? And he said, "No, son, I'm not Jesus." He said, "My name is Drake. I'm your guide. And I'm here to take you wherever you want to go." And he motioned back to my body. He said, "I can take you back to your body." And when I looked back at the body, it was a terrible mess. It had all sorts of issues. It was in the middle of a seizure. It looked horrendous. So I said, "No, I don't want to go back there." I asked him, "That love that I'm feeling coming from you, where does that come from?" And he got very excited and he goes, "Oh, that's coming from our home. That's my home, your home. That's our home. And so I asked him, I said, let's go to our home then. That's where I want to go. Can I go there? And he got excited again and said, yes, let's go. So we began a journey leaving, this earthly realm to go to our home, our real home. And that process, Drake helped me understand that it was going to be a discovery and a journey that was not passing distance, but also time and dimension.
Wow.
That we were going to pass through time and pass through dimension. And in doing so, we would get to this different frequency, this different reality or space, and we would find home. So we begin that journey.
Okay, I want to
And yeah,
before you begin the journey. Um, so most people I from near-death experiences are given the opportunity to say, you have to go back, or told it's not your
hmm
time, you have to go back. So in this case, where your guy Drake comes and appears, he's giving you the option of saying, "What do you want to do?"
yes.
Do you think that he knew that the physical body wasn't in a place that you could inhabit, or it would be very difficult?
It felt like he knew everything that was going on. He felt like he had a finger on the pulse of everything,
Wow.
literally everything. Yeah.
Okay, so now you go from given the opportunity and you take that opportunity looking at your physical body. And by the way, it's interesting as my father passed about almost, it'll be 2 months in a few weeks, and seeing his physical body and hearing the near death experiences made it so much easier for me to look at the physical body as a suitcase,
Yep.
and knowing that the soul continues. As do I see when I look at a deer on the road and look at its physical body lying on the road and saying, wow, this thing is just here as a suitcase. And I'm able to look at it as it's just a carcass, an empty shell.
Yep.
And so you're on this journey now with your guide, and maybe you can take us to where you go and what information or insight you gain.
Yeah. On this journey, right away, he wanted me to know that I didn't have to believe everything, believe it was possible. So I didn't have to fully accept what he was going to teach me. I just had to believe, okay, well, that's maybe possible. And as long as I would, accept that it was possible, to him, that was as good as we could move on. And we began the journey. And I was definitely a bit of a cocky guy back then, and I thought I knew a lot about religion. So I looked at Drake and I said, okay, I know it's all about love. Love, love, love. I know that's what you're going to tell me. That's what this is all about. And he looked at me and goes, I love that you think that, but it's a little different than that. There's more. And he explained that, authenticity is how we are able to grow here. Until we can be authentically ourselves, until we stop putting up a false mask on ourselves, we are stunting our growth when we put up a falseness in front of us.
Right.
And that we have to learn to be authentic. And once we're authentic, we can authentically love and receive love. And that was a big deal. I thought I was authentic. I really thought I got this one. I thought I was the same guy no matter where I went. And Drake showed me, when I was with certain groups of friends, I acted one way. When I was with my parents, I'd act a different way. When I was with my siblings, I'd act a different way. And he showed me how every single person I was with, I had a different side that I would show. And it's important for me to embrace the commonality between all the personalities that I had, between all the different masks and faces I had. There was one being, and that being was very close to probably who I was when I was 5 or 6 years old. And so I started there. I started to whittle away at who I was until I knew for sure I got to my authentic core. And then I started to experience, I started to grow, I started to follow and learn from Drake as he took me on the journey. But authenticity, number one, most important thing. The next thing he taught me was knowing why I was even on Earth. And he said that, Earth, it's he asked, "Do you know why you're here?" And I said, "Yeah, we're here to be judged. We're here to be saved or thrown away. We're here to be sorted." And he said, again, he said this almost every time, "I love that you think that, but there's more." And he helped me understand that Earth itself is a reward. It's not a test, and that it's a classroom and not a courtroom. That
Wow.
we come here to learn, we come here to challenge ourselves, we come here to overcome, and um, to think that, um, you know, to think we've got it all figured out doesn't work. We have to realize that we're here to learn how to play in the sandbox.
Yeah.
That Earth is a school, a classroom, not a courtroom. And the greatest thing we can learn is we can learn how to love,
Yeah.
how to authentically love. Yeah.
So in the interim, you're um, in a coma while this is happening,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
how
So I'm
long? And how
brain dead
long?
for 3 days.
Okay, so for 3 days, you're receiving
Hmm.
this interaction, this download, this lesson, this life review, this journey to understanding life itself, and so 3 days it goes on. How long, first of all, did it feel, and what happened when you came back into your body, or what did
It
it feel
felt
like?
it felt like longer than 3 days. It felt like a week or maybe a month. It felt forever. I felt like we could spend a whole day on one topic and then we'd get through it and we'd start moving again. And every time I would learn, I would slow down my moving, or whatever my progress was. I would slow it down by learning. And then as soon as I had learned or accepted what I was being taught, I would start going fast again. And through all of that, there was 10 separate principles that I was taught. The first being authentic, the next being why we're here, that Earth is a classroom. The third was love. It was love, and it's all about loving everyone. And I felt I had a good grasp on that. The fourth principle is to listen to your inner voice, listen to what I like to call the God voice inside of us.
Right.
And it can answer things, it can guide us on things. Um, and then the fifth was to use technology responsibly. In 2003, there wasn't a lot of tech that we could necessarily use irresponsibly,
Right.
but I understood it was going to be part of our future, that we learn how to garner a positive relationship with technology by not letting it control us, by not letting it, shape our lives.
Right.
But we could shape our own lives using technology if we want to. So yeah, understanding that tech itself is not an enemy, but it can be an enemy if
Right.
we let it
Right.
to God.
So,
Then that brought me to the fifth principle, or no, sorry, the sixth, because fifth is use tech responsibly. The sixth is release all prejudice. And that one was a huge one for me. I thought that I didn't have any prejudice. And Drake said, Vinny, I'm glad that you don't have any prejudice, but how do you feel about prejudiced people? And I had plenty to say. I had so much to say about prejudiced people. And when I got done with my little tirade of prejudiced people, he looked at me and said, Vinny, you know, by you carrying any prejudice, you yourself joined the prejudice team. And that was a great eye opener.
wow.
It forced me to see something I didn't know was a problem, because I did have a lot of prejudice towards prejudiced people. So I was in the middle of essentially releasing that when um, Drake showed me that I have the power to create my own world, my own life, by having the ability to control my own thoughts. And that if I can control my thoughts, I can control my life.
Wow. Yeah.
And not in everything, but generally, I can have a good control of my life if I have a good control of my thoughts. So that was another eye opener. And as I was cruising right along, I was almost done when Drake helped me understand that in this life we have to be very careful about avoiding negative influences. We have to understand that there's purpose, even in evil, there's purpose. And he helped me understand that if you take away evil, you take away the opportunity to grow. That
Yeah.
it's not that God wants us choosing evil. It's that God needs us to choose to learn how to make choices.
Right.
And one of those has to be a bad one, unfortunately. Yeah. And, that one was a hard one for me. I had an uncle that I was very, very close to at the time. He's since passed away. He was openly an atheist. He didn't like to believe there was a God because of all the bad things that happen on earth. And from this experience, I knew there was a God, but I also knew that love was so strong, it permeated the worst problems. It will get through and cure us and heal us of the worst traumas this life can throw at us. But evil in itself does have purpose.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
has the purpose of serving the bottom of Jacob's ladder. It's an anchor place, a place to measure from. Yeah.
Well, people don't real. I mean, the dark, the night, the dark, the light, the yin, the yang. I view it myself in terms of like the sandpaper, the painful aspects of our lives that refine us, that we use to become wise as opposed to a victim of circumstance. In this place that you're in with Drake, is this what does it look like around you? Do you recall the scenery? And
So I was surrounded by light. It felt like we were in some type of container of light. Um, I couldn't see what it was, but I could definitely see we were in a container of lights of some sort, or a craft made of light as we were on this journey. But I could easily see out the front of it and easily see out the back of it. So I could see where we were going away from. I could see what we were going to with great strength. I could see really, really far. And then most importantly, Drake would give me vision of understanding it, where I was in the journey as well. Like I could feel when I had made it about halfway. I could feel when I was about 3/4 of the way there. I could feel when we were almost there. And we were almost there to this final destination of what I call heaven or home. And that's when I started to notice so much more. Drake had said, Vinny, we're all one. And for us to hate or hurt or harm another human being or any other being, we're only hurting ourselves. And that was a very impactful statement.
wow,
I thought that all of life was like a hierarchy, and those at the top could do what they want. Those at the bottom had to think about responsibilities and certain protections. And I love that with that last bit that we're all one. I learned that no matter what we're doing, good or bad to each other, we're doing it to ourselves.
yeah,
We are. And at that point, I knew that I had left, at that 10th principle, I knew I had left completely the earthly realm. And I could feel this other realm right in front of me. I was in a cold winter and seeing a warm fire. Like I just felt really beautifully warmed as we got closer and closer and closer to this place.
Well,
And as we did get closer, I could see it was an Earth-like place, like a whole planet. I could see that there was no outside light source. There's no sun, there's no star, that the place itself was a star. It's like the earth itself gave light, the trees gave light, the water gave light, everything in that space gave light. And so essentially you could witness source. You could witness what we call God
Right.
as source in that space. And I felt home. I felt completely home. I felt more home there than I've ever felt in any place on earth, ever.
Were you were you told where the place was or what the name of it was?
I knew it was heaven. I knew just by default it was heaven. I knew that's where we were going from the beginning, was to go to heaven. And I didn't know what to call it. I just kept calling it home. Like I felt I'm so grateful to be home. And the grass itself, oh man, like the grass, it's really hard for our human to understand this grass, but every blade of grass had different shades in it, and every blade of grass was a different shade from each other. It's as if each blade had like liquid color in it, and it would oscillate and change and vibrate, and the grass itself had like a beautiful odor coming off of it, a beautiful aroma coming off of it. There was enticing, inviting energy
Broke up a bit.
it, trying to bring you with it.
It broke up a
Okay,
second.
how about now? Am I good now?
Yeah,
How about now? Am I good?
yeah, it's going in and out. Okay,
Okay, sorry about that. I
that's all
don't know
right.
what that is.
Yeah, so
If
you're
it
talking
happened,
about the blades of grass.
yeah, the blades of grass were just insanely beautiful. And I could feel that every single blade of grass loves every single one of us.
Oh, it's amazing.
And the grass itself had colors, like rainbow colors coming off of it. And it had oscillations of color, like waves
Yeah.
coming off of it. It even had sound. It had music that was playing off of just the grass. And as I came into this space, all I could think was, I'm home. I'm finally home.
Wow.
And
You know,
I could feel plugging into this place that I started to recharge my soul. I started to get the energy that my soul had been missing my whole life.
how was the journey itself? Was it by ship? Was it free floating?
It wasn't free floating because I was standing on a white floor in a room that felt white. I couldn't see corners in the room necessarily. I feel like maybe I was standing inside of a sphere, like a perfectly white sphere, but I could see out the front of it. I could see out the back of it. Even on these two like quarter panel areas, front quarter panel areas, I could see out either direction. I could see space through both of those areas. I could even feel there was many beings on this thing, not just me and Drake. I didn't understand that though, and I didn't quite grasp what that was or how it worked. But I knew for a fact that there was other beings there. I knew it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I speak to many people who've had contact with galactic beings in a near-death experience, um, beings that look different, beings that look like us. Did you ever associate it with such?
100%. Yeah, Drake was the first who I associated with in the experience, but since the experience I've associated with hundreds, maybe thousands since. And you know what our ancestors called angels, a lot of spiritual people call them galactic beings now. To me, they're all workers. They all work in the guise of taking care of God's creations or source's creation. And our Western idea about what a God is
Right.
very different than what God is. God is very much unfiltered, ununiformed, and and doesn't conform to our human beliefs of what God is. God is so much bigger than what we could ever understand.
So you're in this experience. You can call it, I guess, a ship. You can call it a sphere. And this lasts for 3 days. And then how does it happen that you return to your body? What is that like, and how does that happen?
Well, I was in the heaven realm. Drake was watching me freak out about stuff. I was freaking out about flowers and trees and water, and all these things were trying to heal me, all of them. Like even the water came on its own up out of its stream, approached me and asked me. It actually asked through conscious communication, would you like us on you? And I said yes. So it like climbed up me and covered me, encapsulated me in this magic waters, and it healed so much of the energetic trauma that I had gotten into my body, or into my energetic body, from essentially trauma, just
Yeah.
big trauma though, big trauma. And so that's all happening. I'm really having the most beautiful time. And that's when I notice a building, a tremendous building. Like it looks like it's built out of one piece of marble. It looks like it's 3 or 4 stories tall. I could see people going in and out of the building, excitedly going in and out of the building. I saw that there was no doors anywhere on the building, and that when someone wanted to enter a room, they would go up and they would either stand there or place their hand on a wall, and the wall would either open up or stay closed depending on the frequency of the person.
Wow.
And if they had the right frequency to match what was going on in the room would just open, they'd walk in, and then the room would seal itself. So I was watching all of this happen. I was so excited. I wanted to know more. I did want so badly to go to that building. And I was about to ask Drake that when Drake came around to my side and he put his arm around me and he goes, Vinny, this is going to be really hard, but it's going to be worth it. And he brought me in for this huge hug. And this hug itself, it felt like it had encapsulated God's love for me. I felt truly loved. That moment, in that hug, there was nothing in this world that could convince me that that was not just a hug from Drake, but a hug from God, from my Creator. And not just from what I would call a Heavenly Father, but also a Heavenly Mother. I could feel both coming through in that hug. And as I'm just relishing and enjoying and loving this hug, I then started to hear in my left ear, I could hear my brother on earth saying a special prayer over my body. Now, at this point, I'd been brain dead 3 days. It was time to make a decision to either unplug my life support systems or get me transferred to palliative care, which is where you hand the person over to someone who takes care of them, even though they're in a coma and they're on life support. My brother and my dad didn't know what to do. They weren't asking anyone for help for decisions. But my brother got the idea, you need to bless Vinny's body. So he did. That third night I was in the hospital, he came in, gave this blessing to my body, this special prayer. And he commanded my body to be made whole. He commanded that my soul, my spirit, return to my body. And as he finished that prayer, it was only a matter of seconds and I was back in my body.
Wow. Wow.
It was very, very quick. At some level, I had to be okay with it. But in my human consciousness, I did not want to go back. There's no reason I wanted to go back. I only wanted to stay in this beautifully amazing place. But knowing what I know now, I needed to go back so I could have a family. So that I could, teach others about what I learned. Not for them to have their own Drake or their own experience like me, but so they could have their own perception about heaven and have their own take on all of this stuff. So I was forced back to my body. I felt it. I woke up in my body, and for the next about 24 hours, I didn't remember anything. I didn't remember heaven. I was claustrophobic, very claustrophobic. And I kept telling everyone, I just want to go home. Even when I got to my home, I was walking around my house packing a bag, saying I was going to go home,
Wow.
but I was home.
Amazing.
And I didn't know why I was that way, but it was a sister of mine who cornered me and said, Vinny, um, did you see anything? Because, everyone says you were actually dead. Did you have some kind of near-death experience? And my brain tried to say no, but what came out of my mouth was my experience. And as it came out of my mouth, I just started weeping. I cried. I cried. I cried tears I didn't know a man could cry.
Yeah.
I just wept. I wept heavy and hard. And I actually had to go home, not talk to anyone for a full day or two. I went back to work the next day after all of this, and I just wouldn't talk to anybody. I couldn't. It took a couple days before I could even talk to anyone about what happened. I still was very careful about who I'd share the experience with
Yeah.
because it was very sacred to me. And in one of the hardest moments of my life, I was looking to try to assist God on inviting me back to heaven. I was looking into skydiving, dangerous jobs, anything that would give me the chance of an accident to allow me to go back. And as I was doing all of that, I met my wife. I met my Andrea, my earth angel. And it was her influence on me that she encouraged me to go in January. I met Andrea in April. And then at this family reunion, and up on the screen of this presentation that was happening was a picture of Drake. And I had no idea who Drake was, but here he was in this little town of Wyoming where a lot of the people who live there are my cousins. And I'm seeing Drake on the screen. I froze. I lost my voice. I couldn't speak. Andrea had a really good perception of this because she saw what was going on in me. She saw the picture. She knew that was my guide. So she kind of gathered me up. We went directly to my grandmother's house, and my grandmother had a maiden name of Kazer or Kazier, and that was the last name of this man, but it said his name was Charles. It didn't say his name was Drake. So I went to my grandmother and I go, Grandma, who's Charles Kazier? Who's Charles Kazer? Tell me who this guy is. And her response was, oh, you mean great grandpa Drake? He's kind of famous in our family. And at that moment,
Wow.
it's like all these puzzle pieces that were not fitting together. It was like a single click and everything fell into place. And now it all makes sense. Why Drake, of all people to come, how he was connected to me. He was my great 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 grandfather. I had never seen his photo, not one time in my life. I had no information about him. I had no idea who he was. And I had been describing him since January to people,
Wow.
and people would always look at me like I was a crazy guy. They still do, and that's okay. I don't care what people think of me anymore. But what's really neat in all this is I finally had a verifiable point that I couldn't have known. And it was such a deep hit on me that I realized I had to embrace my experience now.
Wow.
Up until that moment, there was a part of me, I call it my ego, that was consistently thinking this was just my imagination making things up. And that includes listening to spirit. I'd been listening to spirit since that fateful day in January. I'd
Right.
been listening to spirit since I came back, and I would do things and it would change people's lives. I would do things, it would help people. I would do things and it would lift people up.
Wow.
And I was watching all this happen, and yet still my ego is saying, this is all in your mind. This is all in your imagination. None of it's real. And it was that moment of finding out who Drake was. It's like it all clicked together.
Wow. How
And
did you,
I felt that hug again. I felt that same hug I had in heaven from him.
was that a picture you saw of him?
It was. So it was a slideshow of some of the first settlers in this little town in Wyoming. And he was the first surveyor. So he was a land surveyor. He was also a clergy. So he had performed as clergy for the little town and had done quite a few different jobs, even worked in government and county government, state government, a few different offices he had held. So he had this long track record and history of serving others, but I had no idea who the guy was. Never saw him a day in my life. And yet I had all these memories of interacting with him for 3 straight days.
Wow.
Every moment for 3 days, I'm interacting with this guy. He feels like my spiritual best friend. And yet inside me, my ego is saying, that's just your imagination. Vinny, stop kidding yourself. You're making this up. I had that kind of voice in me all the time.
You,
Is it still there? It is, but it's very, very small now. I don't listen to it. I do listen to my spirit team on almost everything. Yeah.
it's interesting because most people who have near-death experiences, they don't, it takes them about 10 years to process, to then share their experience. Sometimes sooner, but most of the time I heard an average of 10 years before a person is able to put everything together then to speak about it.
Well, the hard part is it's so full of love that every time you attempt talking about it, you weep.
Yeah.
You just weep. Just
Yeah.
even thinking about it, I would cry.
It's so
For the
funny.
first 3 years, I would just cry if I even thought about it.
I watched a person who had a stroke. I've been following a group of people, a family that husband and wife they traveled the world. It was a podcast, and he had a stroke, but he was crying every time he was expressing the thing. I don't think he's aware of it at that point because it's only a year
Yeah,
or so. And so I'm saying he had a near-death experience because the intensity of his overwhelming joy and
yeah,
love that's coming from
love.
him is so
Yep.
visible in his eyes, and he's not aware of it. You could see, but I guess someday he'll be able to express some of the types of encounters that existed.
Yeah.
Do you have a picture of you? Do you keep a picture of your great grandfather near you? Do you pray to him? Do you ask for his
So,
assistance?
I work with him daily. I still see him in spirit daily.
Wow.
He doesn't show me himself so old anymore. He did for what's really interesting is he was showing me an image of himself as if he was the age of that picture I saw. As soon as I saw the picture, he started changing his age when he would work with me. And I would see him more in his 30s, maybe 40s, but he would still give himself the long white beard and the white hair.
Interesting.
Um, and I think he would do that because he knew that picture was coming. He knew that was the picture they chose. There was plenty of pictures he had taken of him.
Right,
I
right.
mean, for a man of his age, that was pretty rare to have one picture of yourself back then, let alone multiples. He had multiples, and he matched his image to match exactly how he looked in that picture. Yeah,
Wow. Perhaps it was to have that photo so that when you
it
had this
was.
experience,
Yeah.
that you can relate the story that your experience with him. Um, what I want to say. So, in other words, do you receive any information from him as a guide now? Like if you're doing
Yes.
something,
Yeah. I
how does
work with
that how
him.
does that work?
I work with him daily. It's kind of like how when you want to know something, you go to Google or you go to one of these search engines
Yes.
and you input the question
Right.
and then you see responses.
Right.
That's the way spirit works with me, is I'll ask something and I'll ping spirit, and then certain spirits will answer back,
Right.
but not all spirits. And Drake is one that he'll either answer back or he'll say, you know what? I don't have that answer, but I know who does, and he brings me the being who does. So he really wants to facilitate, as long as I'm trying to serve or help others with what I'm doing, he continually wants to help me in any capacity possible. But he's also introduced me to Archangel Michael. I've been working with him now for 4 years. And I didn't know I'd ever been with Michael before, but Michael also was a common player in my story growing up. I didn't know that. I just thought he was some kind of
Okay.
protector of some sort. But he is such a powerful being of light and protection.
Yeah.
And so Drake helped me understand who he was and connected us so that we could work together daily as well. So, and then I work with guides,
Yeah.
my guides, your guides. All of us have guides. Whether we want them or not, we have them.
Yes.
And I work with everybody's guides. Yeah.
I read the Akashic records, and so for me, gaining access for myself and for others, it's easier for other people as it is for myself with my ego getting in the way. But when
Yep.
you speak of masters and guides and receiving information, I hear a certain voice myself. Um, what gifts did you have before this experience, and what gifts did you gain from the
So
experience?
I did have the gift of what I would call tongues. So, I lived in Southeast Asia and I learned how to speak Vietnamese. I did it by serving Vietnamese people. And so I had that gift where I could pick up a language very easily. But before my experience, I didn't even use that as a gift. I used it for a short period, but I really didn't think I had any other gifts. Now, since my experience, I've learned I had something called the gift of perception, or I had the gift of being cursed with what's called HSP, or highly sensitive perception. Other people call that being like a super empath.
Yeah.
And I was raised in a substantial amount of abuse, and that abuse activates HSP in most abused kids.
Yeah.
I would say majority of abused kids are HSPs. So I could walk into a room of 100 people and I could tell you the one person who was hating someone else in that room,
Yeah.
or who was suffering or had any kind of strong emotion. I could point them out and sometimes point you out the exact emotion they were feeling too. Yeah. So, that was what I had before the experience. Since the experience, Spirit has taught me how to heal myself, how to heal others. And really all it's doing is allowing us to use the quantum field. The quantum field is the fabric of life itself. It's plugged into everything. And as we learn how to use that properly, we can heal each other, we can change things. Something that is really fun is helping people that have been like imprisoned by addictions
Yeah.
release the addiction in 90 minutes or less sometimes, because they didn't know that the addiction wasn't an addiction. It was a young child inside them trying to fix a wrong. And Spirit helps me find that young child inside,
Yeah.
say sorry for what was wrong and release what was wrong. And now all of a sudden, no desire for the addiction, you know?
It's very interesting. The inner child, I mean, I do shamanic work, and what you're speaking resonates with me insofar as, when, and I say this on many podcasts, but it's all similar. We cut that wound, we stop at the wound, and we go on from that point thinking that we're whole, or we want to avoid parts of ourselves that we can't digest, and returning to that place. And for some reason, I know myself through my own traumas that I have that perception as well, uh, cracked my ego apart and made me see beyond that that wall that we put up. But insofar as understanding the inner child again, and your experience with that and having that ability, I guess highlighted or put you on the path that you were supposed to be. And after
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
after everything you've experienced, the death, the return, the transformation. What does living a meaningful life mean to you now?
Living a meaningful life to me is to have time to connect to myself. That's like breath work, meditation, having time to connect to nature, and then having time to connect to those who I love.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah,
That's meaning to me right now. All of the above in their own order. And that's where I find meaning in my daily life.
if
Yeah.
anybody were interested in reaching out to you to connect or to um, research or some of the work you've done, where could they reach you?
So they can reach me through either my website, which is vinnytolman.com, which is Vinney, Tolman, Tolman.com, or livinggodslight.org. Either one. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you if you could leave the audience with a lasting message that relates to your story, to your life, what would it be?
It would be try to remember who you really are, because who you see in the mirror is not who you are.
Right, right.
The thoughts that are in your head are not your thoughts. You're the observer of both, but you are not either. And getting a good grasp on that and learning how to love the observer of your thoughts, learning to love the being that views a body in the mirror, views their body in the mirror, learning to love that consciousness, that being. That is an important step for all of us. And it's time that we all remember who we are.
Yeah, as we finish up, I think about my life, and after when I have conversations like this and I speak to people, it always reinforces and it supports the idea of the eternal soul and how it's continually will continue on, and how the physical body itself, when we get caught up in the ego and ailments and whatever it may be, it just gives it one hope and the understanding that the negative experiences, as you mentioned before, the darkness is necessary in order for us to be able to evolve and grow.
Yes.
So I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to share a little time. I'm sure there's much more information you can talk about, and maybe we'll catch up on another conversation. Um, but for now, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity, the inspiration.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Adam. It's been awesome to join you and be on this podcast with you.
Thank you.